Okay, everybody, I am Erica. Just giving a confirmation again that everybody can hear me okay and that you see my presentation in your screen. Perfect. Thank you so much. And just a reminder too to mute yourself when you come in unless you're asking a question. So let's get started. I am Erica and I'm here to talk about declutter your life, getting your house in order, because April is all about records management month. So it's a good time to really think about those issues. So without further ado, let's get started. So first off, I'm here at Round Rock Public Library. I'm in the Adult Services Division. So come up and say hi to me anytime on the second floor. I am also a serial organizer. I hate clutter. And so I wanted to share some tips and tricks on how to reduce the clutter in your home. We're going to be covering quite a few topics today. So first, we're going to talk about cleaning up before you get started, how to tackle your room, I'm so sorry, how to tackle your house room by room, making your own declutter kit, and managing your paper records as well. So please feel free to jump in with any questions that you have. I would ask you to go ahead and put those in the chat. That's a great place to do that, and I will do my best to answer. I also have a dedicated Q&A at the end of the session, so we'll be sure to get to any and all questions that you have at that point. So let's get started. Now, this is a warning to you. This is my parents' house. I sent a text to my mother and I said, please send any pictures of any single location in your house. And here's what she sent to me, plus pictures of their garage. This is why I am allergic to clutter. Now, keep in mind, when you look at these pictures, my parents have not been able to park in their garage for decades at this point. They built a separate storage shed just to make room for more stuff. And once they filled that up, they went ahead and built a separate 3-car, 2-story garage that includes a workshop and a sewing room so that they could expand. Does any of this look familiar to anybody? Does anyone else's house look like this? Probably, or your parents' house? I also told them I'm just going to set that whole thing on fire when they're gone. So, but just to show you where I'm coming from. And I'll ask a question in the chat. Yes, I'm definitely planning to share the slides, so no problem on that. So does anybody else besides me watch those cleaning videos on YouTube? I'm talking about those that take an all-day clean and they speed it up so they get it done in an hour. I see some people shaking their heads. Yeah, I love those things. There's such a huge stress relief. Now, even if you're not a weirdo like I am, you might still realize that in order to even tackle that clutter, you're going to have to clean some stuff up first. I know it does not sound like a ton of fun, but it does force you to unearth things that might be hiding in the house. The positive side is once you get a good clean going, that declutter time might take less time. So it's a good thing to be thinking of. So how do we go about doing that? I've included some links here, and I'm going to share those in the chat as well. So I pulled some things from Molly Maids, for example. They've got this really nice quick checklist to go through when you're looking at tackling those big rooms. So let me include this link in the chat right now. I've also got copies here at the library, so if you're stopping by, you can grab some. And has anyone ever followed the Fly Lady? That's her name, Fly Lady. She's all about cleaning bits at a time. So even those of us who are maybe a little bit too obsessive, or maybe we've got some ADD and we get distracted, that she's all about cleaning bits at a time, even if you're cleaning badly. It's still cleaning. It still gets you moving forward. And I'm going to include a link to her as well in the chat right now. She's a good person to think about. And so when we're looking at also thinking about tackling the clutter as we go, Here's some things to think about. So I did this just the other day. I was working on my bathroom and cleaning it up as I went. And I was also making notes for myself about, oh, I need to get a better piece of storage for this. This stuff can go. This stuff is expired and needs to get out of here. So I had a trash bag ready to go. I had a small box ready to go so I could start to sort as I was also cleaning. Now, you can't keep your house in order if every single available surface and spot is taken up with something. Some of us live like that. My parents live like that. And you can't put anything away if there's no space to put any of it, right? So you're also probably adding more things every day as you go. So we're going to be talking about what's called zone decluttering and using time to your advantage. So with zone decluttering, you pick a room to get started in, even if it's just say 15 minutes a day, once a week. So before you get started, use those tools like I was talking about. You grab your trash bags, you grab every bin or basket or bag that you can find. These are going to be places for you to put things. So with things that are definitely not trash, hopefully I don't have to tell you if it's trash, it needs to go to the bin. With the things that are not trash, put those objects in the bins and you're going to come back to them later. So we're still in this zone mode. We're in one room. We've got additional resources with us. We're going to start putting things into places that we'll be able to store or donate or sell or trash properly. Now, some people use what's called the trash bag method, which is that you grab a trash bag and you start filling it up until you can't fill it anymore. Then you're done. That stuff is just going right out to the bin. Now, not everybody is super hardcore that way, but you might have a room in your house that just is begging for that. It's old paper, it's old records, it's things that are broken that you're never going to come back to. Whatever you just don't need anymore. Stuff it in that trash bag and it's going out the door. So still within that zone method, we talked about time a second ago, and even that 15 minutes a day of decluttering can make a huge difference when you're talking about staying on top of that clutter before it becomes so overwhelming. And maybe you're going to focus on hotspots that attract clutter. For example, in my house, it's the desk where we put the mail and something that we received and stuff that needs to go into another part of the house. It just all sort of congregates right there. That's a hotspot. That's the place that can use decluttering once a week or once a day for just a couple of minutes. So maybe for you, you set up a timer, for example, and you're doing as much decluttering in that time that can help you feel, at least mentally, like you're staying on top of this. Maybe it's a little egg timer. Maybe you've got it on your phone. Maybe you're doing it to cleaning to a song, for example. It's just about a way of keeping you on track so you don't feel like this is going to take all day long. I'm never going to get out of here. Now, there are also some extra hardcore people who follow the 1 in, 10 out rule, which means for every single new item you acquire, 10 things have to get tossed, meaning they leave your home to parts unknown. Some people just do the 1 in, 1 out. I personally do that with clothing. If I buy a new piece of clothing, one piece of clothing needs to get donated. There's just only so much room that we have in our homes. So either way, whatever way you choose to go about it, there are things that are going to need to leave. So how do we start to think about those items? So look at this clutter. Ask yourself these questions. Is it broken, damaged, and missing pieces? Is it very worn? Do I have something else that serves the exact same purpose? Am I holding on to this item out of guilt for some reason? Maybe somebody gave it to me and I thought, oh gosh, Now I've got to keep this until the day I die. If you saw this item in the store today, would you buy it again? When you're thinking about clothing or linens, for example, does the item still fit? Is it even still in style, a style that you want to perpetuate? Do you actually really like it or love it? Have you used it in the last 6 months? That's the one rule that I really, really strictly follow. Do you want to keep handling this item? And is it worth the space that it takes up? That is a question that I ask myself for things like much larger items, storage or pieces of furniture. If it takes so much space that I have to reorganize everything in my house to try to make room for it, is it worth it? So think about these questions. Ask yourself these questions. Take a hard look at the stuff that you have and make some decisions. And sorry, guys, I'm still admitting people and I'm putting people on mute as they're coming in. So welcome. If you missed the first part of this, I'll be sharing all the slides. We've got a Q&A at the end as well. So never fear, we'll get to all of your questions. So I've got another declutter checklist. This one is what I would call the super complete list. This is from my beautiful mess. So I'm going to include this in the chat right now. And again, I have copies of this at the library. So if you're local, come on by and grab a copy of it. So the checklist is organized room by room. It includes a list of questions to ask yourself at the bottom of each page. So it's really helpful. And here's a tip that I think really works if you're on the fence about some particular item, okay? You're just really not sure. You don't feel like you can make the decision today. You're not like me, who is extremely definite and just says yes or no. Put that item in a box and label it throw out in 6 months along with that date. So you know what that date 6 months in the future would be. Today would be October 16th. So if you get to that 6 months, and you haven't even touched the box, you've forgotten that the item is in there, don't even open it up, take it directly to be donated. Done. You don't have to think about it anymore. I do that quite a lot with clothing as well. I'll separate out some things where I'm sort of thinking, I might want this at some point. I might want this in a different season. So I set it aside, put the date on it, come back to it. If I haven't had any need for it, it's going out of the house. So think about a declutter kit. So I started to talk about a couple of items for it. And my most recent take and make was with making your own DIY declutter kit. And I've still got instructions here, and I will also include another link in the chat. So everybody's got tons and tons of helpful links. So here's what you want to think about including in your very own declutter kit. So grab the following: trash bags, labels, markers, Post-its, or other bits of paper, a pad of paper, or for example, your phone, if you're like me and you keep your notes on that, sandwich bags, like we talked about a second ago, containers of every shape and size, just whatever you can find, you're going to be able to use it. Tape and a towel for wiping things down as you go. So you're doing a little bit of cleaning plus decluttering. So how do we use all of these things that after we've gathered them up? So trash bags, it's going to help us make some decisions. So start as you're going through, say you're starting on one room, put those items into the trash bags that you're planning on either literally trashing or donating, because they're easy to kind of carry that way. Some people like to use black trash bags because you can't see what's inside of them. So let's say that I've gone into my room, my kids' room, anybody's room. I've started just putting things that are littered everywhere that I know nobody's going to use, or they're broken or whatever. I put them in this black trash bag. The kids can't see in there what's been pulled out. They may not have an actual inventory of their entire room just at their fingertips. So it's helpful to sort of get into that out of sight, out of mind context. Now, when you're looking at these bags, so if your initial thought was to put this item in a donation bag, go with that thought. Move your attention onto the next item. Otherwise, you're going to be rethinking every single thing that you're looking at. You're going to be changing your mind. You're going to be looking at it and thinking through past memories where you were wearing that beautiful sweater and dancing in the rain or not. It's going to take all your motivation. It's going to distract you. So we are all about removing distractions and keep moving forward. That's the thing. Second item, labels. So this is really good to label your sorting boxes or your bins. So here are some ideas for those labels. Donation, giveaway, that could be for friends and family. Put away, meaning it has a place that it needs to go. Trash or recycling, the kind of maybe pile that you're sort of on the fence with. And then the sell pile, which is only for the advanced person. Because this idea that you're going to be able to make $1 million on eBay or Etsy or have this incredible yard sale that's going to net thousands upon thousands of dollars is probably not super realistic for all of us. So let's talk about those different categories. So donation. So these are anything that you're planning to give away to a registered charity or any other sort of organization like that. Here's what you need to be thinking of though. Do not put something in a donation box that is torn, stained, stinky, broken. Everything needs to be clean and in working order. So I'll share a story with you. Years ago, I worked for the Red Cross. And as you probably know with the Red Cross, we do a lot of sheltering work, people who have been through some sort of a natural disaster, people who maybe have lost items in a fire. It doesn't matter. It's a lot of folks who may be looking at a pretty traumatic event. We would often have people ready to step up to donate items. What they didn't understand is that items have to be very specific. You may not want your child to have a used toy, for example. You may not want to take someone's linens. You don't know how they have cleaned them, if they have. They may have used some sort of detergent that you have an allergy to, any number of things. And so we often turned people away, and they would sometimes get upset thinking, any item is great and is useful. That's not always the case. So we don't want to just pawn off our broken trash on people. Those items belong in the trash. So keep donations for things that are in good working order that can be handed to someone that they could utilize. Now, the giveaway pile. These are items that you wanted to give to a specific person, for example. It's a great way to give new life to those things that you might not be ready to donate yet. For example, I am very active in my Facebook group, my Buy Nothing group for my neighborhood. So for example, when I was doing my decluttering the other day, I saw some pictures that I had taken, some artwork that I had taken down from the wall to make room for something else. I'd set them aside. I realized I did this months ago. I don't need this artwork anymore. I immediately took a picture of it, posted it to the Facebook group. It was gone that afternoon. So that was great. Now, don't use this though as a way to just pass on your clutter. Always ask the person first if they in fact want to get your items. That put away pile. Like we were saying, sometimes clutter is just stuff that needs to be put away and there is a place for it. Have a basket ready to toss those items in as you're cleaning and decluttering. When you're finished, pick up the basket, walk through your house, putting those things away, done. The trash and recycling is probably pretty self-explanatory. This is going to be a trash bag that can literally go to the trash bin or to the recycle bin, and you're going to move on from there. Now, we talked about the whole selling idea, and I said that this is really for the advanced person only. And why is that? Because it's pretty simple. You've got distractions in place. They're going to halt your progress. And that can be really easy to get distracted by if you've got the sell bin, because the selling process, as we know, it is time consuming. It requires a lot of dedication. It can have you changing your mind quite a bit if you see something set out and you think, oh, it's worth $1 million. Why am I selling it for a nickel? Just move on. So the maybe pile. We've talked about this in a couple of other iterations too. So when you're faced with something that feels really difficult, a really difficult decluttering decision, you get this maybe bin. Make sure that if you have an item, that it needs to fit in that box. So if this is something so big, or there are so many things and your maybe stack is starting to get larger and larger and larger, you need to make some other decisions. But let's say that you have a reasonable size box that's got some maybe items in there. We talked about that whole dating the box idea. So you put the date 6 months from now, you're going to come back to it and make a decision at that point. And then we've got those items I mentioned, like the markers and the Post-its and the sandwich bags. Those are to help you label things really clearly so that there's no question of what this box is for. Post-its can be really, really helpful here because you can say what the next step is going to be. Say this Post-it is marked as, okay, this is my maybe for 6 months from now. This is my needs to go back in here. This is my, oh, ask mom if she wants this, something like that. And the sandwich bags are really helpful for when you find all those little bits and bobs as you're cleaning and decluttering, game pieces, hair ties. It's something that keeps them right together. You can put that in your put away stack for later. But it helps you keep that clutter down as opposed to you've got this gigantic thing of bits and bobs. So all those containers we talked about, think about laundry baskets, shoe boxes can be repurposed. All of those things can come into play to help you get everything in order. And then we've got tape. That's really helpful to close up boxes, especially those things that are going to get put away for later so that you're not tempted to next week sneak back in and look through and start pulling stuff out. It's helpful to tape up donation boxes so they can go directly into your car, for example, and stuff's not going to fall out everywhere. I mentioned the towel. That's really helpful when you're cleaning up shelves as you clean them up, cleaning out storage bins, all that good stuff. And I mentioned also a way to keep notes. So I did this during that decluttering process that I mentioned because I realized, oh, I need some new storage here. The one that is that we have is just not working. I also made a note of, I've got this stack of art that needs to be framed. So I made notes of all of the sizes as I went. So I now have my task list essentially. I keep that in my phone. Some people like a physical pad of paper, put it right up on the fridge. It's a great way to track all that stuff as you go that, okay, I got to repair this bulb when I get a chance, as opposed to setting everything down, doing that repair, and then you don't feel like cleaning up again. So it's basically the task for when I get some more time. So what do you do next? We talked about how selling is something that you need to be dedicated to do, but a lot of people do have informal yard sales. Like I mentioned, I am very active in my Buy Nothing group. That's a way to just put everything out and you come on and get it and I don't have to do anything about it. I love doing that. Other next steps, take that stuff to the donation charity that you were thinking of. Put away those items that were marked as put away going through the house. Take the trash out to the bins. Maybe give the maybes one quick pass through and then seal them up, put them away. So here's something also to think about. So we were talking a bit earlier about that whole giveaway concept. It's when you need to think about giving someone a quote unquote gift, you need to make sure if they actually want it first, because they might not see it as a gift. So I included 2 articles for you. You can see the difference in the years. So one was from 2017, one was just a couple of months ago. Not everybody wants your stuff, or you might be surprised by who wants something. It could be things that you never thought about. So just because you're thinking that somebody wants your 18-piece China pattern, that doesn't mean that everybody has the space for that. So it's something to consider. Okay. So we've done the super high level decluttering at this point. For a lot of us, paper records, physical things might make up a huge part of our decluttering process. So there are very good rules of thumb for what needs to be kept for what period of time. I'm going to include a link from Susie Orman, and I'm just going to sort of high level hit what she recommends. But you could, this information is pretty standard across a lot of different experts. So you're not going to find people saying, oh, you should keep that 7 years, and somebody else saying get rid of it. It's pretty standard stuff. But the things that you want to keep for a short period of time, if you're still printing out ATM stuff, it's 2022, but you know, not everybody has gotten that memo. You just keep that for a short period of time. When we're talking about things like 1 year, that's going to be paycheck stubs, that's going to be possibly bills, especially if you have to keep them for something like home office. So you may need to maintain some receipts specifically for tax filing purposes. The other things that go into 1 year might be credit card receipts, bank statements, investment statements. When you're thinking about what to keep for longer, 3 years is for income tax returns. That's generally the period where the IRS will say that you could be audited within that period. So you may need to keep some physical records of that stuff. Medical bills, insurance policies, records about selling a house, selling stocks, other high-level items like that. And then the items that we're keeping for 7 years or forever, we're talking about contracts, insurance, stock certificates, property tax records, home improvement records. Again, we're thinking about that process of what we may need for our taxes. Things to keep forever: marriage licenses, birth certificates, wills, adoption records, death certificates, paid mortgage. You're also going to want to keep these items in a safe place, a safety deposit box, a fireproof safe at your home, something like that. You could also, though, think about going digital with these items, which again, you want to make sure you have it in a secure location. So something to think about when we're talking about where do we put those records? What if we don't need them for tax purposes anymore? You may sometimes need to retain documents, whether digitally or with a paper copy, that you have to have for other financial institutions. Sometimes insurance companies will ask for something, sometimes creditors will ask for something that go beyond what the IRS requires. So you want to keep these documents secure. You have to make sure that your sensitive information is safe and accessible. So as I mentioned, you need a safe place in your home to store the records. That's going to be a fireproof safe, something like that. Digital records, make sure that you're archiving these, so you could scan your documents. You could keep them on an external hard drive. You want to make sure that that stuff is password protected as well. With your financial accounts, use complex passwords. Make sure that you're using things that are different from what you may use for your email, your online shopping, or your social media. These should be dedicated passwords and usernames. And make sure that your computer has some antivirus software as well. So when it comes to the point where you're ready to actually get rid of some paper documents, you got to think about a secure way to do those as well. And again, the reason that I'm doing this presentation in April because April is Records Management Month, you have probably seen, including in your own neighborhood, I know that we had one, you'll see community shred events. So that's a place where you can take your documents to be dedicated and shredded. There are other places that will do that as well. Here at the library, we can take small amounts and shred them as we go. But make sure that whatever you're doing, you're properly disposing of things. You're not just tossing them in the trash and expecting everything to be okay. The shredder is really the way to go with that. You may even have a shredding station at your job, for example. So it's good to sort of stay on top of those events so you can see who can take care of safely disposing of your documents. So we've also got displays up this month showcasing the books from our collection on cleaning, organizing, decluttering, downsizing, storage. And I've given the reference numbers here where those are in our nonfiction section. And again, I'll be including sending out the slides so you'll have all of this as well. So I know that I whipped through that, and I'm very happy to answer any questions that anybody has. So feel free to turn yourself off of mute or to ask the question in the chat. I'm happy to go over anything else too that anybody wants to discuss. And I'd love to hear your stories as well if you had a particularly difficult decluttering job that you had to take on. So I will turn the floor over to anyone who has a question. And in advance, thank you everybody who has joined us today. So any questions that I can answer? Let's see, anybody in the chat? No. Oh, here we go. Okay, so TBS, is there a good fire/waterproof safe you recommend? I'll try to find the one that we have at my house. So give me just a second. It's of course going to depend on your size, the size of what you're trying to retain. We've got a smaller one. I know that my parents have a much larger one. They also have gun safes, for example. So there are a lot of options out there for you. So let's see. And it looks like you can pick up one that is a nice size for about 200. You can get others that are smaller for about $75. Here's one. I'm putting this into the chat. And Cynthia asks, great question, what would you recommend for journals and photo albums? So I find that stuff to be really personal for myself, Cynthia. I have some of my collection that's in the actual physical photos. The bulk of what I do, though, I will have just digitally. And so I have multiple external hard drives, and they're very large. You know, you can get something so easy these days that's multiple terabytes. So I will then regularly move photos off onto those. I also create, I create a lot of content. So my husband and I had a podcast for a number of years, and those files are quite large. And that's something that I want to maintain forever. I want to store that stuff myself. So that's what we do that's what we do as well. So we move those items once a month off onto this external drive. For the journals, I think that's so fascinating because some people are going to have journals that reflect their artwork, reflect the written word, could just be personal diaries, could be something much more exotic and beautiful than that as well. So I would decide whether you want to actually think of what you have as a way to archive some of this material, or if you think of it as something kind of less technical than that. And let me explain. So for those of us who have special items that are collectibles, for example, like comic books or rare materials. There are archiving cases for those things. So that means that, you know, say you've got these journals that you absolutely love, either that you maintained or a family member did. I would really think about putting them within an archival storage piece, and you can also find those things relatively easy as well. So it's going to be what encases the journal, plus it's going to be the storage box itself. Now, you might decide, okay, I've got these pieces that I want to essentially archive. I want to preserve them forever. If you're a fan of Antiques Roadshow, you know what I mean, that you don't want to see stuff faded. You don't want to see paper get water damaged, for example. So that would be the items to archive. There could be other items that, you know, maybe it's personal stuff that you've created that you don't necessarily have to have the physical copy of. I would really think about scanning those items and preserving them that way. So we here at the library have gotten a scanner, and we're going to make it publicly available for people who have things like large photograph collections. And those are all meant to be scanned, put onto a drive for yourself. So think about, maybe you want to go that route for some of your items. And Cynthia, let's see, first off, Crystal said, a friend used his refrigerator for his dissertation as a fireproof place. I guess that's one way to go about it. Yeah, so maybe not the best location. And Cynthia says, I have so much military memorabilia. What would you recommend for these items? So again, that's going to depend, I think, Cynthia, when we're talking about what kind of memorabilia is it? Is it clothing? Is it metalwork? Is it that you might think of for something like an award or a badge? Is it written material? I would personally check with an actual archivist, because people will come to you and help you try to plaques and medals. Got it. So that would be those higher quality storage materials, and then storing those items within an actual archiving storage box. And you can go think about how museums do it. Think about how a resource like the Harry Ransom Center does. And Cynthia, are you familiar with the military museum that's over at Camp Mabry? Because they could be a place to chat. Yeah, let me see if I can find their info. Yeah, it's the Texas Military Force Museum. So it could just be an interesting question to go ask those folks. You know, how do you advise people maintain this stuff? They may even really want to look at your collection. You know, who knows? But I would think about the actual archiving process when you've got memorabilia at that level. For example, even though I'm talking about this decluttering, my husband and I have a very large collection of physical film media. We've got something like 8,000 titles. So it's what we're dedicated to. We have special storage for it. It is insured because the collection is worth such a large amount of money at this point. And so we maintain a separate database that actually tracks every single item. That's sort of what thinking like an archivist is all about, if that makes sense. So think about the storage for the specific item, think about the larger storage box, or maybe you're hoping to display some of this material, or maybe part of it, and then you keep the rest of it in storage, much like museums do. If you've ever thought about that, museums display something like, you know, a tenth of the collection they actually have. The rest of it has to be properly stored. Does that help at all, Cynthia? Okay, great. Okay, any other questions? Any other crazy people's friends keeping dissertations inside of fridges? Okay, thank you, Cynthia. All right. Thank you, Laura, for attending. She had to drop off. Any other questions I can answer? places to send you to. And I'm putting this Susie Orman link into the chat. That's the record keeping chat. Absolutely, Crystal, no problem. So here we go, Corey. Yes, any tips for getting kids involved? So there are kind of two schools of thought on that. And I'm going to defer to you, Corey, because you know your kids and I don't. Some people say, absolutely, get your kids involved. Have them do their own room, set them up with their own bins so they can make those decisions themselves. Help them when they get into kind of the maybe category, incentivize them, meaning, hey, we just got this super awesome new set of books or new toys. We got to make room for some stuff, and we're going to give them to some people who are so excited to have them. Kids can respond to, oh yeah, I'm actually doing something bigger than myself. And they are actively making their own decisions for their own stuff. It gives them a chance to accept some responsibility for those things, and make sure that they make their labels look exactly how they want them to look, and they decorate their boxes exactly how they want them to be decorated, and listen to them when they're trying to make these decisions as well. So it can be a family thing. They can go at their own pace, or you can say, hey, it's family declutter time. Everybody grab a room, go for it. Who can do this the fastest? Who can who can get rid of the most stuff? Sometimes games like that are fun. And then other people are going to say, do it when the kids aren't home, use black trash bags, move it out, and they won't even notice. That's maybe for younger kids. Sometimes older kids might feel a little bit too much like you've encroached on their territory. Let's see. Yeah. So Corey, what do you think? Do you think your kids would be excited about doing this? Do you think that they would drag their feet and make it more difficult than they need to? Or maybe you can switch them up and have, one of them take the kitchen instead of their own room, to do something where they don't, oh, excited. Great. I love it. Yeah. That's kind of how I was when I was younger. I was excited to move some stuff out to make room for some things. Yeah, just hard to keep momentum. So you set that timer, Corey. You say 15 minutes, who can get the most done? We're dragging it all out to the living room and we're going to have a big laugh, and then we're all going to go together to the donation thing. Or somebody's job is specifically just to take the trash out. Somebody else's job is to do the photos really fast for the Buy Nothing group. Use their strengths. Get them excited, set a short amount of time for it, and get them moving forward. Hopefully that helps, Corey. Anything else? We still have a few more minutes. Happy to take any other questions. Any other tips that you can share with the rest of us? Anybody have anything that's worked really well for them, especially in making decisions? TB. So the pictures that I take, I no longer use a hard copy camera, a non-digital camera. Sorry, it's been so long. I can't remember what to call them anymore. An actual film camera. I don't do that anymore. Yeah, thank you. So everything I take is on my phone. So I am just, as part of my process, moving it all into the cloud, and then also keeping external hard drive of the stuff that I want, not just random ephemera of me, standing in front of the Walmart or whatever. It's the stuff that I really, really want to keep. That regardless of if my phone dies or I've got to change the SIM card or whatever, yes, I have a process where I've specifically moved things onto an external hard drive. For me as well, one of those other pieces of clutter are all the things that I write. I journal sometimes just on my computer, for example. I'm writing novellas, I'm writing poetry or short stories. And so I constantly move those off as I go. So I have enough space on my computer to keep going, but I have that external record of all this other material that I've created that I want to keep. Because I've been through that before, where I had things on floppy disk that, who knows. Okay, Cynthia asked, do you recommend moving the clutter to the living room to separate, organize? What I would say, when I was suggesting that for Corey and the kids, I feel like that's a little bit different. So you need to decide for yourself if the actual additional step of moving something to another place makes it either more difficult for you to keep going. Maybe you need to stay in that room, get it all organized there, and then move it all out directly to wherever it's going to go, as in out to your car, out to the bins, out to the garage sale, or to get put away. But maybe that doesn't work. You know, sometimes the room, so I did this the other day in our back room because there was just not a lot of space in the middle of it. I had to move, I pulled everything out. I put it into the hallway and I only moved back the stuff that was going to stay in that room. Everything else was the trash or the giveaway or the put away. And so that made it a little bit easier for me to actually move around. So I like it for that. I do think when you watch those long cleaning videos like we were chatting about earlier, they will often keep the stuff in the room. The living room can be its own monster. So it just is whatever is going to work for your house and for you. But it could be an interesting trip from, say, the back bedroom to the living room. Maybe you realize this box is too heavy and this thing's going in the trash. Let's see, Jan is asking about, what about old family movies? I'm not interested in them. Guess I just answered my question. Going in the trash next week. I love it. There are places that will take these movies and scan them so that you have, a smaller way to store them if you want. There are other places that will keep them for you just simply as an ethnographic record. But you may not want to try to track one of those places down yet. Maybe it's just, we're okay. We've got our memories and we'll move on from there. But I love that even just the act of asking about an item makes you think, yeah, no, not interested. Anybody else? Yes, last question. What cloud service? So I just use iCloud, that just for the sake of ease. So I don't really have any recommendations of other places, but there are quite a lot of options. Let's see. I know a lot of people have used Rackspace. It just depends. Sorry, I know I'm blowing. OneDrive, Dropbox. I use Google Drive myself. And I'll tell you too, and this could be helpful for the folks that are journaling people, are writers. And I do this for my schoolwork as well. So I get in the habit of every single, oh, great. Thank you. Elle says Amazon has a photo service too. That's wonderful. I get in the habit of creating everything new on Google Drive because then it's not storing it on my computer and I can access it from anywhere. So I love that option. So thank you so much for those recommendations, everybody. Okay, anything else? What room do you think is the most difficult to try to declutter? Which room in your house is the toughest? Cynthia says my office. Is that big? Do you have a lot of paper, Cynthia? Or is it just a lot of stuff that just it's the hot spot where everything gets tossed because it doesn't yet have a space? Books and paper? Absolutely. Keep in mind, the Friends of the Library accept donated books. We're delighted to have them. You don't have to think about it anymore. Art studio, all those extra supplies. Absolutely, Julie, for sure. For us too, it was our kind of podcasting space, and then it became my sewing corner and every other thing in the universe, all this extra stuff. So something that you might want to think about, Julie, or other folks like us, is how to actually maximize the space, which isn't something that I can really talk about here, but we've got a ton of books on it, in order to get yourself proper shelving that can house all of these items. Sometimes that's much easier said than done, for sure. But still, you know, you're the only one who knows the answer, but sometimes it is just get rid of 15% of it and see how that goes. Is it stuff that you just are not going to need to buy again, or, you know, it just has served its purpose and it can now move on? I also find the bathroom, strangely enough, is a really difficult one for me to declutter, because you don't know when you're going to get sick. You don't know how long some of that stuff needs to stay in there. It's old makeup, old hair ties for hair that I don't have anymore. You know, just all sorts of bits and bobs like that that just find their way in there. I have to spend a lot of time in there, and that's a place where I really have to organize storage properly. Otherwise, it's just falling out all over everything. We do have some really great books here on designing some really interesting storage solutions. So that's fun. And then of course, there are also professionals who do that too. Any other questions that I can answer? And while I'm waiting, I'll just let everybody know. So we'll send the video out on Monday or Tuesday through Eventbrite. So you'll have a link to it for our YouTube page, and that will include the presentation as well. So is anybody inspired at this point to go forth and declutter? Yes. Awesome. Awesome. Yes, I'm glad to hear it. Mimi, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming. As soon as taxes are done, yes. Cynthia, you're very welcome. Yeah, get it moving out the door. Elle, you're very welcome. Thank you. Okay, one more minute for any other questions that I can answer. Okay, thank you everyone so much for coming. We so appreciate this. Please feel free to send us any questions. If you're in the area, come on and stop by and grab some decluttering books, which you are required to return. You're not allowed to put them on top of your desk and then forget about them for the next 3 months. You're supposed to look at them, use them, send them back. So goodbye to everybody. Have a great weekend, and look for the video and the presentation in the next couple of days. Okay, so thank you, everybody. I'll stop the recording now.